Hi, I'm Kevin. Welcome to Shop Talk. Today, my oldest daughter, Kenzie, and I are going to put together an LS Victory pulley system, let you see how easy it is, and tell you all about it. One thing before we get started, we do have an option. We have a billet aluminum thermostat housing, but I'm going to show you what the differences are, and you don't have to have it. That's why it's an option. This is a LS2 style water pump with a flange put on it, and the thermostat from the factory, our thermostat housing, if it's bolted on, comes out what I would call about 830 over here. And you know, obviously that worked on the late model vehicles. But on a lot of these older vehicles, as we put these engines in them with the frames the way they're made and stuff like that, it sure is handy if that thermostat housing was pointed down. So what we did is we built a billet aluminum thermostat housing, and it is made so that it will turn down in what we call the 6 o'clock position. So, you know, you might want to look and kind of plan ahead. If that's something you think you need, we offer them. Sure does make things easier when you need it. Okay, we're going to get started here. We're going to start on the driver's side head. Kenzie's going to bolt that's what we call the main power steering alternator bracket. And she's going to bolt it on. I'll kind of help her get started here. And that one moves down just a little bit, right along in there. So as she's bolting it on, one thing that we do, I feel like is different, is as you can see, we're bolting directly to the head right here. Some of them we bolt to the block right there. The AC compressor is going to be bolted to the head and to the water pump. So what we like to do is what we would call have a solid foundation. So we bolt off of the heads and the water pumps and stuff like that as much as possible, so that we have a solid foundation. Now, some of our competitors will have just a flat metal plate out here, and it's not bolted to the block at all, and they only have like 4 bolts or something like that. And that, just think about that. You've got a wing out there with a lot of weight, a belt pulling on it, heat, everything else. And in my mind, that's going to have to flex. So everything we've got is solid.
So how tight should I tighten the bolts?
Okay, today, because this is just a display motor, we're just going to tighten them up. So you can use the impact there and just tighten them up. You know, for guys like myself that's been doing this for 40 years, you just kind of know how to tighten it. If you're kind of new at this thing and you want to make sure you get it just right, these are standard metric and SAE size bolts. You can look up the torque specs online, or if you call or email, we can email them to you. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and bolt on the power steering pump.
Are there different kind of reservoirs?
Yeah, there are some different reservoirs. This is what we call our mini reservoirs, which is standard on the 6 rib kits. Here, I'll help you a little bit, kind of find that hole. Get them started.
Bottom one isn't going in good.
Okay. So, like I said, this is what we call our mini reservoir. Then we also have some what we call remote reservoirs. Okay, now you can get your socket.
Stop.
And that one right there. So we also have remote reservoirs. That's plenty. Good. That's good. All right. This is a Hydro Boost type reservoir. It has 2 fittings for return lines. We also have, and this would be the style pump that it would use. Instead of having the reservoir built on the pump, we run a hose from the bottom of this one to that. Now we offer that in the standard reservoir or the Hydro Boost. One other thing to know about the power steering pumps is, depending on if like the pumps come standard for like a GM rack and pinion or a GM steering box, as far as pressure and flow rates, if you have a Mustang rack or a Hydro Boost or both, we can adjust the pressures and flow rates of these pumps based on your needs, so we can kind of tailor it to your package, so what you're putting together there. So that's a little bit to know about that. So the next piece is our it's an alternator spacer. So Kenzie's going to bolt that thing on there. There you go. Remember what I told you about that? Okay, you can tighten that up. Tighten it up. There you go. You don't have to tighten them super tight, just hit them, buzz them up. All right. Okay. Next piece is our front alternator bracket. Go ahead and get that thing started for you. Set it down there. There you go. Now just kind of hold that back and get her started on there, like that.
Just like right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we'll put the alternator in it. But notice we left this loose. That's one pretty good key when you're assembling these things, is just leave them loose, all the bracketry, till you get everything bolted up, because if you get it everything tightened up, it's not going to go real easy. It's all made to tighten up at the same time. So I'm going, this alternator's a little heavier, so I'll stick it in here and get it started for her.
Are there different alternators?
There are some different options on alternators. We offer, we start out, these things come standard with a 120 amp alternator. We go all the way up to 220, and just depends on the amp draw. So that's a really important thing. Years ago, as we got started doing this thing, you'd have a 100 amp or 140 amp or something like that alternator, and man, that was plenty. Nobody ever thought anything about it. But nowadays, people run all kind of creature comforts, and you put dual fans, you put air conditioning, you put a big stereo maybe with some amplifiers, or if you've got air ride, you can have all kinds of electrical draws on these things. And then sometimes what happens, if you don't plan ahead, people burn up alternators, and they're wondering why they burned up an alternator. This alternator's bad. Well, most of the time, it's because somebody didn't do their homework, or possibly not wired right. So we have lots of different options as far as amperage and finish. Ready? Mm-hmm. Now we'll put the crank pulley on. That's good. Okay, there goes the crank pulley. Now obviously those would be important to torque there, so go ahead and put your water pump pulley on. Mm-hmm. Remember like that right there?
Going in and right there.
Just ain't got it exactly straight. Let me see it. That might help. Just go ahead and take the extension off too. There you go. It's okay. Go across, straight across, yeah. That's good. Okay, our next piece, we're gonna move over here to the passenger side, and the air conditioning main bracket bolts to the head. So, or actually I would call it an anchor bracket. No. Smooth. Good. Now do that one. Okay. We're going to move on to the next one. We're going to put the AC compressor front bracket on. You can step over here. And it's going to bolt to the water pump. So it'll kind of go like that right there. You can get on that side.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said earlier, we're going to leave all this loose until we get everything kind of bolted up. So I'm going to go ahead and, this thing's a little heavy. I'm going to get it up here for her and let her tighten that up. But we're going to get the bolt started in the front of the compressor. We have this main anchor bolt in the back of it. And we'll get it started. Okay, and now you can start tightening that up, Kenzie. So that will go these two. I'll get you the socket for the other. Yeah, that one won't work. There you go. And as she's bolting, tightening up the top two, I'll bolt up the rear bolt right here. There it is. Okay, now we'll bolt the tensioner on. You can see it's got some pins that locate it right there. Bolt that up. It's the 9/16, the short one. Toward the back, no, the short one.
Oh, this one?
Yep. All right, there's that. So there's the main part of the kit. There's a couple little accessories we're gonna put on here. We probably need to put on the power steering pulley, don't we? Now on these power steering pulleys, I recommend that sits up on a hub. I recommend running those up by finger, good and finger tight, just so they're straight, because you could get that thing cocked a little bit. and you don't want your power steering pulley running wobbling there. So, okay, now you can tighten it up. All right, one thing to remember about the power steering pump, sometimes, you know, we're just snugging things up right now, and impact actually works pretty good for that. If not, you definitely want to, you can a lot of times take a punch or something to go through that hole, or you can put a socket on this one. Make sure those are good and tight. We've had guys call sometime, my power steering pump is clicking, click, click, click. And what we found out was their power steering pulley was loose, and that thing goes to chattering back and forth, and as you pull it off, you can see it because it leaves chatter marks. So make sure to double check that thing. Our next thing, and almost last thing, is we just got, it's just a little compressor nose cover. Just pretties up the clutch on the compressor. When you put that on there, now this is just going to set on these 3 rivets. So you want to ease that up just kind of like the power steering pulley. Here, I'll let you bolt it up to make sure you get it straight, and you have to tighten those pretty gently by hand, otherwise you can make it wobble too. So all right, now tighten those. Okay, on those I would recommend tighten those by hand. Just kind of, you want to snug them, not go crazy tight, because like I said, you don't want it to wobble. So go around it like that. We've got one more piece that we'll put on, which is the AC manifold. Now this one's going to be a little tight right here, and what we might do is end up taking the throttle body off of it, because it's pretty tight. So sometimes you can put it right in there, sometimes you can't, but it's pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the throttle body. Okay, we're going to put the AC manifold on here, which is what enables you to connect your AC hoses to it. These things come with the compressors come with this little block off plate. Just remove these 2 bolts. Then the plate's going to come off, and I'm going to show you what to be aware of right here. Notice how one O-ring stayed in there and one did not. And we'll have guys saying, call, man, do you have any O-rings? I'm missing an O-ring for my compressor. And we have to say, look at your little cap. So just pay attention to that. Make sure those O-rings come off your plate and stay on in the compressor. And then we just have this little slick little billet manifold that bolts right down on top of those 2 ports right there. And I'll tighten it up, and it's ready to put a belt on. Okay, it's ready to connect AC hoses to. All right, now Kenzie, let's put our belt on. Put it on there. You remember where we put it on last?
Yeah.
All right, so that one, leave this one off right now. Go that way, and then right around there. Yep, around that, like that, around that, and then there we go. And sometimes this is a 2-man job just to hold a tensioner. Sometimes it's not. This one's pretty easy actually. Most of the time on most of these, putting the belt on the water pump pulley last because it's smooth is a lot easier than putting it on a grooved one. And that's pretty typical of most kits. So now you see a Victory pulley system that is not too hard to install. It has a great foundation, super rigid, super strong. They've been dynoed, they've been tested and run hard for a long time, many years. We have different alternator options. We have the different power steering options, different finishes. You know, we can do all that stuff. So anyway, it's a great little Saturday project. Not too hard, as you can see. Most guys can do it fine by themselves, but if you've got a neighbor or or a child or somebody that wants to help you with it, it's a good little project. So anyway, if you're interested, give us a call. We'd love to help you. Thank you very much.